This is a walkthrough showing you how Scratch Mission 3 Mars Landing was set up and what the actual scripts within this project do. So, I'm going to start off with the mothership first of all. The first script we're going to talk about is this one, and what that does if I play it is is a little bit of animation, so it's switching between three different costumes. There's a little bit of rotation and a little bit of movement along the x-axis, and plays a little sound as well. So how does that work? What's it actually doing? So the first one again is when the green flag is clicked. So when the game starts, we want the mothership to point in direction 90 degrees. That means that it's going to stay the right way up. We want it to show on the screen. We want it to go to X0, which is right in the middle of the X-axis on the screen. And we want to go to Y160, which is going to take us towards the top part of the screen. That's just keeping it towards the top, out of the way of the force field. Then underneath that there is a forever loop, which runs at all times throughout whilst the project is actually running. And all it's doing is playing a sound. So it's playing the sound Alien Creek. Switching to costume 1. If you look at the costumes, we've got three different costumes. First costume's got nothing underneath it. The second one's just got a little bit of blue coming through. And the third one's got a bit more blue, just to make it look like it's actually hovering or moving, or some sort of power boost coming out of the mothership to keep it flying. And you can see that you're switching to costume number 1, a little bit of a weight, again it's random just to make it look like it's not completely repeating itself every time. Switching to costume 2, and then another random weight, switching to costume 3. So that just makes it switch between the different costumes. After that we've got change X by, and again it's pick random 0 to 2. So it's going to be small movements across the screen. Okay, so again, it's just to make it look a little bit more realistic, and so it's not just staying still right in the middle of the screen. And the last thing we've got on this script is a little bit of rotation, just to again make it look like it is actually moving, and it's not just staying still on the screen. So it's turning 1 degree in the clockwise direction, and then after it does that, and it moves and switches costume, it turns 1 degree to the left. So it's going to look like it's actually hovering on the screen rather than just staying still in the same position throughout the entire time. The next script that we've got is when I receive Mothership Landing. Mothership Landing is a broadcast which is basically whenever Scratcho completes the mission. So whenever Scratcho touches the switch, which should be renamed switch really, and what it's saying is whenever the green flag is clicked, so whenever the game starts, forever, so at all times, if the switch is touching Scratcho, then play sound rattle. So it's going to play a sound. It's going to switch between the two different costumes, which is just to move the switch from the position to the left, to the middle, to the right, to show that Scratch has actually knocked the switch over to deactivate the force field. And once that happens, it then broadcasts Mothership Landing, and that basically tells the mothership to whenever it receives Mothership Landing, it's going to glide 3 seconds to X minus 115, which is going to take it to the left over about this sort of direction, and Y minus 115, which is going to take it down towards the bottom. So it's basically saying when it receives Mothership Landing, it's going to glide to this position of the screen to make it look like it actually lands on the surface of Mars, and then it's going to broadcast mission complete. Then it stops that script. Whenever mission complete is broadcast, that brings up the mission complete sprite. So again, the mission complete sprite is just when the green flag is clicked, hide, so you can't actually see it, and it's going right to the middle of the screen on the x-axis 0, y-axis 0. Again, that should have a stop script in there somewhere. Stop this script. And when the mission complete sprite, so it is there, it's just hidden from the start. Whenever it receives mission complete, it shows on the screen, and it repeats 10 times, switching between different costumes with a small weight in between it, so we can actually see it switching costume, and then it stops all. So basically just saying that the mission has been complete, which is going to do something like that. Okay, so that's the mission complete one. And the next script that we have on the mothership is again saying when the game starts or all times during the game when the green flag clicked forever. So it's going to run this at all times throughout the game if the mothership is touching the force field. So again, this is a force field sprite. If the mothership is touching the force field, repeat 10 times. It's going to play a sound, which is laser 2, and it's going to change color effect. So what it's going to do is essentially it's going to flash, it's going to change color on the screen. Then it's going to broadcast a spaceship force field, and that's just basically a broadcast I've set up to let the system know that the spaceship is touching the force field. Wait 2 seconds, and it's going to stop all. Okay, so it's going to run that. It's going to broadcast spaceship force field. It's going to wait 2 seconds and stop all. And all this broadcast, the spaceship force field one does is it brings up the game over sprite. So when I receive spaceship force field, it shows on the screen. Okay. When the game starts, the game over sprite is obviously set to hide, and it's set to come up whenever from the mothership whenever the mothership touches the force field. So that's the scripts for the mothership and how they work. The next one is Scratcho. So these are hidden, so I'll just drag these out of the way for a second. So the first script is basically just saying when the green flag is clicked, so when the game starts, we want Scratcho to hide. We want to set size to 20%, so that makes an appropriate size for this actual project, for this level in the game. And we want him to make sure that he's in the costume facing to the right. So again, on Scratcho, we've got different costumes, one facing to the right, one facing to the left. We want it to face to the right as he falls from the spaceship. So that's the first one, very straightforward. The next script that we have we're going to forget about that for 1 second, and we're going to talk about this one. And this script is a script which actually releases Scratcho from the mothership. So if we just play it and show you what it does, if you press space now, Scratcho is released from the mothership and falls towards the surface of Mars. In this case, he's blown up because he was traveling too fast. So this is how we've achieved this. So when space key is pressed, so Scratcho is released from the mothership by pressing space key. Switch to caution facing to the right. Go to the mothership, so make sure that it's at this point on the screen. So this makes it actually look like Scratcho falls from the mothership. Set speed to 0. In this game, we've created a variable called speed to introduce variables and how they might be used within games. And this one is basically used to control the speed at which Scratcho falls from the mothership towards the surface of Mars. And then we want Scratcho to be shown. So we're setting speed to 0, then showing Scratcho. Then what we've got is a forever loop with a few if statements are inside it, or a few if inside it. And what we're saying then is forever, so at all times whenever after space key has been pressed, change y by 0, take away speed. This is going to change y obviously by a negative value because it's 0 minus the speed. And we're changing speed by 0.2. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to gradually make Scratcho speed up as he falls from the spaceship towards the surface of the planet. Then what we've got inside that is we've got if statement. So if it's touching the color red, then we want to set speed to speed. This basically just stops this decrease in this increase in the value of speed, and it sets the speed of Scratcho to the actual speed that is traveling at that point in time. This has basically been used to stop the change on the speed, which we use to work out whether or not Scratcho is going at an appropriate speed to be able to land on the planet. And again, we've got set y to minus 115. That's just basically saying that Scratcho stops whenever he hits the ground. So he either blows up if he's going too fast, which will come in a second, or else he stays on the planet if he's going at the right speed. Inside this, we've got two more if statements, and this is basically just checking the speed, and it's saying that if the speed is greater than 8, then broadcast crash. And the crash one, I think, will be over here somewhere, which will come in 1 second. We'll go for it now, actually. So If the speed is greater than 8, so if the speed that Scratcho is traveling whenever he makes contact with red, i.e. touches the ground, is greater than 8, we want to broadcast crash because he's going too fast and therefore he will explode on contact with the surface of the moon. And this is the script we've used to do that. It says when I receive crash, which is obviously broadcast if it's the speed of Scratcho is greater than 8, it's going to switch to Scratcho right 2, and then it's going to repeat 6 times and it's going to switch between the different costumes. All these costumes that this refers to are the different costumes on Scratcho, and they basically just make it look like Scratcho actually blows up. So if I run that, we can't see it. So if we just play the game, you'll see what happens. Just drop him, he's going to be going too fast, he's going to blow up, and this is the piece of code which actually makes that happen. So you see he drops, he's traveling too fast, and he blows up. So that's all that piece of code's doing, it's just the animation to make it look like it actually does blow up whenever he touches the surface of Mars. And the next one that we've got is if the speed is less than 8, so if the speed is suitable, i.e. Scratcho's not moving too fast, he should land on the surface of Mars and not blow up, then we just stop that script. Okay, so that's how that works. And the next sprite that I haven't talked about so far is the force field. And the force field sprite's very simple. And again, it's just when green flag is clicked, set size to 100%. So make sure it's this size in the screen. Point the right to 90 degrees, make sure it's pointing this direction. Show it and set Y to 0. So that's just making it appear in the right area of the screen. And it's forever and again inside that. Similar to what we had on the mothership is just a sound, a little bit of movement, so it looks like it's moving up and down slightly, and a little bit of rotation, again just to make it look like it's actually moving up and down in the game and make it look a little bit more interesting. So if we play that, you should hopefully see what that does. So you can see it's just moving the force field up and down in this level. Then the other the other script we've got on this is when I receive mothership landing. Mothership landing is broadcast whenever the switch touches Scratcho, I think, yeah. So when the force field gets this message, obviously the message is that Scratcho has touched the switch. We want the force field at this point to disappear, otherwise the spaceship will be destroyed whenever it touches the force field. So that's done by when I receive mothership landing, repeat 10 times, change size by -10, and then hide. So if I just run this, you'll see that it's just going to shrink down and eventually disappear. Okay, so that's how that works. Now back to the mission that you actually have to do. The only sprite you have to add code to is Scratcho, and the key to this one is working with the variables. What you want to do is to, in some way, to change or to do something to the speed the Scratcho has fallen, and you could use a wait so it happens a certain length of time after it leaves the spaceship, or after the space key is pressed, or else you could do it to sense whenever it's touching one of these different shades of grey on the way down. That might be used to trigger some sort of parachute or hover function in Scratcho, which will allow him to land safely on the surface of the moon. And again, what you need to do at this point is you need to make sure the Scratcho moves across and touches the switch automatically, because obviously the force field doesn't allow the robots to communicate with Scratcho from the spaceship. And that is all the sprites and scripts that's used in this mission.